and welcome, I'm Tina, a guitar player from Berlin, and today I'd like to show you an analysis of body and soul, some easy chords, some a little bit more advanced chords, and also some ideas how you can improvise over the tune that it has 3 keys and a lot of chords, and just want to give you some ideas how you can improvise in an easy way but also in a more complex way. So let's get into the analysis. The form is AABA and that tune has 3 keys. Most of the time it's written in D flat major, so the A part would be in D flat major, even so it starts on an E flat minor chord. We talk about that in a second. And in the bridge, in the B part, it modulates to D major and then to C major. If I have to transpose the song, I always think about those 3 keys. First of all, I'm imagining D flat and then that it's moving up a half note to D major and later down a half note to C major. So if the tune would be in C major, you could think about it half note up to C sharp or D flat, half note down to B natural. So I think it's a good idea to have sort of an overview over the keys and not only think from one chord to the next. So the A part is in D flat major. First chord is E flat minor 7. It's on the 2nd degree. The next chord is B flat dominant 7th. That's a secondary dominant going to the 2nd degree, and it also really does resolve to that 2nd degree. And then we have just like a normal 2-5-1 E flat minor 7, A flat 7 to D flat major 7. The next chord is the G flat 7. It's on the 4th degree. I call it a blues subdominant chord, which is also leading to the F minor 7. We can think about the F minor 7 as a replacement of the tonic, so not so much to think about it as a Phrygian chord, rather think about it as a substitute for a tonic. So you can play D flat Ionian over that chord, that sounds great. And the next chord, the E diminished, is going to the E flat minor 7 on the 2nd degree. So I made an entire video about diminished chords. Go ahead and check it out. Just want to say one word about it. There is a difference between a diminished chord that substitutes a dominant 7th chord, but there are also diminished chords that are truly diminished chords that you can treat as a diminished chord. And this diminished chord is one of them, and it's leading to E flat minor 7. The next 2-5-1 C half diminished F7 to B flat minor 7. That's another secondary dominant. The F7 is a secondary dominant leading to the B flat minor chord, and the C half diminished is the 2 of the secondary dominant. It's a half diminished chord because this secondary dominant is leading to a minor chord, to B flat minor, which is actually the parallel minor of D flat major 7. And we can think about those 2 chords, the B flat minor 7 and the E flat 7, as a B flat minor sound, not so much maybe about as a 2-5-1. Of course you can think about that as well, but I wouldn't think about that E flat 7 as a secondary dominant on the 2nd degree, where you probably would play something like mixo sharp 11. I would rather see those 2 chords, C half diminished and F7, pointing to the parallel minor and playing something like a minor sound on these 2 chords. And then we are back E flat minor 7, A flat 7 to D flat major 7, our tonic. The next 2 chords, F half diminished, B flat 7, lead back to the beginning of the A part. The B flat 7 is another secondary dominant. F half diminished is half diminished because the secondary dominant leads to a minor chord. So one very quick word about secondary dominants. Secondary dominants are dominant 7th chords that are built on the roots of the scale of the key that you're in. They are not the dominant or the 5 chord of the key you're in, but I think about them like little arrows pointing to other chords, and it's always nice to check out where they would resolve to. They don't have to resolve, they would still be secondary dominants, but it's a great idea to just think about it, where they would resolve to minor or major chord, and then you can choose your scale. So the second repetition at the end of the A part, we have the E minor 7, A7 going to D major 7. That's a modulation. and it's just a 2-5-1 to D major 7. So we're not in D flat major any longer, we are in D major. One thing that you can do to make all those chords a little bit less confusing is writing down the chords from the scale. So now we're entering a new key, D major. Maybe you write down the D major scale and then you write down the chords of each degree, you know, like D major 7, E minor 7, just to have an overview which chords you actually know on which degrees they are, and then you can sort of recognize them in that new key. So if you have a look at the first 3 chords of the B part in D major, E minor 7, F sharp minor 7, they're all part of the D major chord family. Then we have the most beautiful chord, G minor 7, C7. If you're a student of mine, you know that I love that chord because it's a 4 minor chord. Normally we would have a G major chord on the 4th degree. In this case, we have a minor chord, and you can play only G minor 7, but you could also play G minor 7, C7. It has the same effect, and then the chords move on. F sharp minor 7, B minor 7, E minor 7, A7, they are all part of the D major key. So it's really like 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, back to the 1. Let's have a look at the Roman numbers again in those 4 bars. It's really like 1, 2, 3, 4 minor, and then it's 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, and we are back in D major. And then we have that A7, which is really the 5 chord of D major, right? But it resolves to D minor all of a sudden, and that D minor 7 chord is the 2 chord of the next key, because all of a sudden we are in C major, and then it's D minor 7, G7, C major 7, which is just 2-5-1 in C major, and I find that transition really great. So you could call that A7 a pivot chord because it works in 2 tonalities. It's the 5 chord in D major 7, but it's also a secondary dominant in C major 7 leading to the 2 chord, and it's actually resolving to that chord in this case. So here we are, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, 2-5-1, then another diminished chord, E flat diminished chord, going back to D minor 7, G7, C major 7. If you have a look at the diminished chord, it's the same type of diminished chord like in the A part of the tune. So it's another true diminished chord that is leading to the 2 chord. In C major, the E flat diminished is leading to D minor 7, but in D flat, the E diminished led to the E flat minor 7. So it's the same Roman numerals. The 2-5-1 doesn't resolve on the C major chord, but on the C7. That's another secondary dominant. C7 would resolve to F major in C major, but it doesn't do that. That doesn't matter. It's still a secondary dominant. 5 going to 4, and then the next chord is B natural dominant 7th chord. That's another secondary dominant because the root, the B, is part of the C major scale. It would resolve to E minor in the key of C major. Doesn't do that, doesn't matter, it's still a secondary dominant. And then the next chord, the B flat dominant 7th chord, is the dominant 7th chord, the 5 chord from the original key of D flat major, going back to E flat minor. One exercise that I would suggest you do is take, for example, the B part, the first 4 bars of the B part, and transpose them to C major, or transpose bar 5 to 8 to C major. I sometimes transpose tunes that don't make so much sense to me into keys that I'm very familiar with, for example C major or G major, and then I see those connections of the chords much more clearer because I know those chords by heart. So give it a try, that could be a great help. In general, it's a great idea to transpose standards. It will make things much clearer. It's like looking at something from the other side, and it will also give you a lot of new ideas. So that's it for today. Let me know if there's another standard that I should analyze. I will gladly do that, and I see you around. Bye!